It's Denise Taylor, founder of the First Wives Club, and I am so excited that you tuned into today's episode of Love Talk. Love Talk is our platform where we talk about love with wives in mind. And our topic today, it is a sizzler. We are going to be talking with Tami Stewart, who is courageous in sharing her firsthand marriage experience to a narcissist. First and foremost, I want to say that at the First Wives Club, we promote healthy relationships. We believe that wives can thrive in their marriage relationship, but we do not support toxicity or abuse. First and foremost, it is important for you to be safe. If you find that you are in an unsafe situation, please get help. Help is available for you. Tami is going to walk us through her firsthand experience, and I am so elated at her courage. Please tune in. What she shares is impactful. What she shares is a testimony to someone that you can get out of that experience. Take a listen, and I'll see you on the other side. Hi, I want to welcome Tami to the First Wives Club Love Talk segment. She has been so gracious and open to talking about her experience, which was pretty toxic. And the good news is Tami was able to get out of that, seek healing, and then continue to move on with her life and find love again. So just to give a little bit of perspective of how I ran across Tami's story and was so drawn into her story, I picked up a book called Kingdom Builders in Business, and Tami is one of the authors that wrote for this book. Prior to me getting this book, though, I actually really took a sideline seat to an experience that a friend of mine was having. And I'll be completely honest, I was grasping at straws because it wasn't a relatable marriage experience for me. My friend was expressing her frustration. She was expressing even cries for help as a part of being married to someone who was a narcissist. And when I was able to take the experience of being on the sideline of her appeals and her acknowledgement about her experience having real-time, real life, everyday involvement with her husband and read Tami's portion of the book, I just had this huge revelation of how complicated and even toxic that type of relationship is. And so it became a scramble to me right away because I was on the hunt to find Tami. And I wanted to talk with her. I wanted to share about the First Wives Club. And I actually thought it was something that needed to be shared openly. And since Tami had written about it, I was hopeful that she would make herself available to talk with us about her marriage experience. Now, the one thing I want to highlight is thankfully, Tami got out, Tami got healing, and she's gone on to find love again. So this is from a prior marriage relationship. But your candid writing, Tami, is what drew me in because you made me, through your experience of writing about that painful situation, really understand how dramatically impactful it was when you were married to a narcissist and how you really fought for that relationship and you really gave it your all. But at the end, I think saving yourself became critically important, yourself and your son, and you found a way to get out of that. So before we dive in too deeply, I want to thank you for being here. I want to thank you for sharing your story. But before we talk about the past, tell me a little bit about who you are, about your family. And I, again, am excited that you have been able to find love again. So obviously, tell me about your husband as well. Welcome, Tami. Tell us about yourself.
Thank you. And let me say thank you for giving me the opportunity because years ago, the Lord told me that I was going to be a testimony for other women. when I was going through all of that. You know, I would cry out sometimes and say, Lord, why are you allowing this to happen? I don't understand. And he said, because I'm making you strong, because you're going to be a testimony for other women. So I can't tell you how grateful I am that you reached out to me, because it lets me know that my purpose is being fulfilled, that what you read in that chapter gave you such an impact, or left such an impact on you, that you felt compelled to reach out to me, to seek me out. So thank you. Thank you for helping me fulfill my purpose. So for about me, I'm originally from Washington, D.C. I made my way to North Carolina by way of college. And I went home for probably 10 months and decided to come back for love. I made a career here. That first love didn't work out the way I anticipated. But then I met my prior husband that I talk about in the book. Now I am an entrepreneur. I also am employed with American Airlines. Both my current husband and I are employed with American Airlines. I have a 19-year-old son from my prior marriage. All three of us are essential workers. So we go out every day, prayed up and sprayed up is what I like to say. I can't tell you the dynamic of the family. It's coming together, the three of us, a teenage son. My current husband had never been married. So he was 53 when he first got married. And then I was a single mom for 10 years with my son. So we are making adjustments, making it work, and living and loving life. And I say I'm on the pathway to purpose, moving at the pace of grace.
So just really quickly, tell me about how this whole Kingdom Builders in Business came about. And I will tell you, yours was the first passage in there, aside from the forewords and all of that. So I was really expecting something different. I was expecting to hear about all these different entrepreneurial experiences. But what I found and what I discovered in the book is it really is about, through your pain of who you are, finding yourself is where you found purpose to pursue your entrepreneurial experience. And so, like I said, yours was the first passage that drew me in, but help me understand a little bit more about the book, and how you saw fit that this was the vehicle that you were going to share this story, which I'm sure is going to be so impactful to so many.
Well, the book was actually a project for one of the e-groups at Elevation UC, the Entrepreneur Mastermind e-group. Joan T. Randall is the leader of the group, and I became a member in March of 2019. And now I'm actually one of the co-leaders of the group also. But within the first couple of meetings, she said that she had a vision for the group, and that was to write a book together, an anthology. And there was so much excitement, mixed emotions in the room, because there were people who had wanted to write a book, had a desire to write a book, and just wanted to get their stories out. I felt this nudging on the inside to tell my story. I kept thinking back to the Lord telling me that I was going to be a testimony for other women. It was in my spirit a few years ago to write a book, just actually write a complete book called Surviving a Narcissist. So I thought, well, what better opportunity to test the water than do this anthology? And that's where I made my decision. I changed my chapter from Surviving a Narcissist to O is for Obedience, because the Lord told me to take the spotlight off of the narcissist and put the glory on him, because it's truly through him and my obedience to him and his word that I made it out of that marriage.
That's good. So help us understand more about a narcissist. Like, obviously we can look up the definition, but help us understand more about that disorder, that personality trait.
Well, narcissists have an inflated view of themselves. They don't accept responsibility. They place blame on others. They are very sensitive to criticism. They don't like to be wrong in any way. If they do, they retaliate. If they are found wrong or accused of being wrong, they retaliate. They can be very berating and belittling with their comments, very verbally abusive. They try to get into your head mentally because that's their way of controlling you.
Mm-hmm.
They want to make you feel inferior to them because they see themselves as being superior, when in essence it's really their own insecurities that are driving them.
Wow. And so I would imagine that there probably are some who are pretty charismatic, who have taken the bitterness and the toxicity of their relationships and turned them into be controlling and manipulative. And so as you sit now, what do you think were signs that you kind of overlooked or maybe missed about that in the relationship before you got married?
Well, because he was so charismatic, and he seemed to be a romantic at heart, and so am I. He's very creative in other ways. I'm creative. So that's kind of what drew me to him, the creativity, his openness to the arts. We both have a love for the arts.
Mhm.
And that was what drew me in. It wasn't until, um, well, let me start too by saying the sun rose and set on him, pretty much. So he was getting constant attention, admiration, affection. It wasn't until that stopped it didn't completely stop, but when I started resuming activities without him,
Mhm.
or that did not include him or make him look good or feel good,
Mhm.
when I started socializing with my friends again, I noticed a difference in his behavior. It
Mhm.
wasn't until then that he lost that attention, admiration, and affection
Mhm.
that he started changing. I still didn't see it as a warning sign. I just thought, okay, I'll try to balance it out. But I found myself being pulled. I felt like I was being tugged, snatched, trying to be the friend, trying to have not my own life, but my own hobbies, do my own interests, and then be everything for him also. Um, so I think it wasn't until his the cruelty in his comments started, and the constant belittling that I saw it. Because once everything that I expressed interest in, he would put it down.
Mhm.
Tell me it was a waste of time. Why would you do that? No one is doing that. Um, why would you want to go there?
Mhm.
Other women are doing this, other women are doing that. He was always comparing me to something that he thought was better, whether it was made up or not. It was all to change my mindset about me. And really, what it was doing was taking my confidence away.
Yeah. Yeah, I could definitely see that. And it sounds like you used a word, you said when it intensified and started to include cruelty. Is that when you really sensed trouble in the relationship, beyond just some comments because you didn't get your way, or tone? Because sometimes we can displace that and say, oh, he just really wants my attention, he really like sometimes we could try to justify some behavior. But when you say the cruelty, help me understand that a little bit more. Was it ever threatening to you?
It was threatening. And in fact, there were some physical incidents. So that's when I knew that something had to change. There was one time, it's hard to describe, but I can understand victims of abuse,
Mm-hmm.
because for one thing, you're in denial because you can't believe that that just happened.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it was a push, a shove, whatever it was, you're in disbelief that it happened. that someone that you love so much and is supposed to love you, care about you, could treat you the way that he's treating you. You're already suffering and feeling defeated on the inside from the verbal and mental abuse, and then from it going from that to something physical is devastating. So the first time that it happened, I'm going to say it was minor, but nothing is really minor when you look at it. So I kind of pushed it aside. I talked about it, said, hey, I'm not in agreement with this. Don't like that. This can't happen. But he's apologetic, just like an abuser would be. Apologetic about what he's done. I'm sorry. But the I'm sorries don't mean anything if your action doesn't change, if you don't stop using the language that you use, the intent of your will and what you're doing. It kind of shows whether you're sorry or not. So once it got to a point where it was physical, to the point where I felt like I needed to call the police. And it wasn't, I'm not going to say I got beat up, but what happened was he put his hands around my neck and pushed me back up against the wall. And he was upset about something. I said the wrong thing that attacked him and his insecurity, not even realizing it. But at that point, I said, okay, this cannot go on. It can't happen. So I did call the police, but he left. He left and left town. He went back to his hometown where he's originally from. And we were separated. Well, let me backtrack. Because I had called the police, there was a warrant out for him. So his parents encouraged him to come turn himself in. He did turn himself in. We did go to court. I dropped the charges with, the promise of certain things happening or discontinuing. At that point, I thought I was done. My son was 2.5 at that time. I thought I was done with it, but they are so persuasive and they can reel you back in by their manipulation and being so charismatic and the promises that I got reeled back in until there was, I guess in our latter years, there were a couple of incidents that it wasn't the actual physical act, it was the threats or what I could see, the possibilities of happening. I could see that if I did not get out of this marriage, that one of us wasn't going to be alive. And I wasn't so certain that it was not going to be me, because I felt myself getting pushed to the point where I couldn't take it. So I didn't know what I would do if something else happened.
Oh, wow. And so it reached a point, it sounds like, where you began internalizing some things. And that to me is the greatest impact, is how much you lose of who you are. You obviously are beautiful, talented, smart, gifted, educated. And so you're right. These are things that you never, ever thought you would find yourself in situation wise. So help us understand what that personal impact was like for you. You're on the other side of this, and I imagine you have to find yourself again.
Let me start by saying all of those characteristics that you mentioned are really what narcissists look for. They look for strong, independent, confident women who have a lot going for themselves, or is perceived that way, because they really don't. And so that's how they get their supply through you. You make them look good. So a lot of times they'll go for professional women, Like I said, women that are confident, who seem secure, they go after that type of woman. So, which is why I couldn't understand Tami, what is wrong with you? You know, like I had these conversations with myself. What is wrong with you? This is not you. And you just develop this sense of shame and guilt. You start feeling guilty because you feel like you're allowing yourself to go through this. Um, I had more physical and emotional impacts. The physical impacts, because I do and was internalizing things, it was affecting my health. 3 different times I lost my hair. 30 to 40% of my hair just came out. I could go like this and have a handful of hair. I got to the point where I was putting it in a baggie every day. I had a bag full of hair. And I always had a full, thick head full of hair. And that was devastating to me, to lose my hair, because, you know, you have somebody that's already belittling you, berating you, telling you you let yourself go, or nobody's going to want you. And then you see these things physically happening to you. It was affecting my skin. I never had a problem with acne my whole life. Uh, Hormones were a factor, but still, it was my skin, my body was reacting to the stress. It was very stressful. I started getting migraines. I developed acid reflux. Uh, Everything that you can imagine. I had a situation where I was bleeding, just like I had a cycle for 12 weeks straight. Um, and I was so weak. I could, you just imagine like you're on a full cycle for 12 weeks. I ended up having a procedure to stop the bleeding. It stopped for maybe 2 or 3 days and started again. So I talked to my doctor, and she said, she asked, "Are you having any other children? Are you and your husband interested in having more children?" Because we only had the one. And I told her, I said, "Doctor, I don't even know if I'm going to be married. I we're having issues. I don't know that I can take it much longer." So I told her a couple of things that had happened. And she looked at me and she said, "He's crazy." And I was thinking, yeah, because I was thinking he was crazy all along, but they have a way of making you think you're crazy, like it's you. So when she said that, my eyes lit up, because I was thinking, somebody understands, like somebody's hearing what I'm saying, and they don't get the perception, his facade that he puts out there, because no one would ever believe he was doing or saying the things that he was, because he was so well put together and he presented himself differently around other people. So when she said, "He's crazy," I said, "Oh my gosh, he is." And she said, "Do you know he's crazy?" I said, "I do." She said, "Does it help you to know that someone else knows he's crazy?" I said, "It does. You don't know how much that means to me. It's just like I'm breathing for the first time to know that someone else knows what I'm going through, just from 2 examples that I had given her. Not 9 years, but 2 examples that I had given her."
Wow. Wow.
So with that, we came up with the option to stop the bleeding permanently. And, she just said that she was willing to be there or offer any help in any way that she could. She wanted to be a support to me. And then I could always reach out to her if I needed advice or referral. But she suggested that I do go talk to someone. So I did seek out counseling to talk to someone.
And was that the beginning of your exit, or did you find yourself still having to contend with it longer?
That was 2 years prior to I'm sorry, 1 year prior to my exit.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the ironic thing is my ex and I decided to separate. The problem outside of the belittlement and um, verbal, mental, physical abuse was affairs.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing about narcissists is they tend to have a harem of women because they need a constant supply for whatever that need is that's being fulfilled, that they need fulfilled.
Mm-hmm.
So if they're not getting it from one person,
Mm-hmm.
they'll go to the next person.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that there were some infidelities happening, but I couldn't prove it. The signs were pointing there. I just couldn't prove it.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't until I got a definite confirmation with the last one that happened. And that was because my son, um, I thought my son was spending time with his father on Saturdays. That was something I always wanted his dad to do, was spend time with him, because he was always busy. He's a musician, so he always had a rehearsal or a meeting. Something was always taking him away from the house. At the time, I didn't know it was other women, but he always had an excuse for not being there. And my son used to say, "Mommy, where's Daddy? He's always working. He's never home. Why isn't Daddy ever here?" So when he said, I want to take him out to breakfast, I'm going to start taking him out to breakfast on Saturdays, I thought, wow, that's great. That's good for my son. Because really, that was the only reason why I was trying to hang in there, for my son. But my son innocently mentioned breakfast, and he mentioned the name of a person, a female, that was at breakfast. And I said, who? Because I had never heard the name before. So he said the name again, and I'm thinking, who is this person? So I mentioned it to my ex a few days later, and he says, "Oh, you know who that was? That it's a college friend that I knew about, and I came to find out he would use her name because I knew her, and I knew they were friends. So they would do a lot of things together, just out of the blue, So, but it wasn't until my son kept saying it, and I already had hints of an affair. So one day, my ex, he had his gym bag in the kitchen, and I don't know, Spirit just told me to open the bag, because I want to say that I was praying that the Lord opened my eyes to everything He thought I should see also. So that particular day, my ex's gym bag was in the kitchen, and the Spirit just said, "Open it, look in it." I looked in, and I saw information about another female, and that they had even opened up a joint account together.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, and this is when I said, okay, this is who he is. Things are not going to change. I can't do this. So what I did was really had a talk with myself. I looked in the mirror and I said, "Are you happy?" The answer was no. I said, "Do you see things ever changing?" The answer was no. "Do you want to live like this the rest of your life?" The answer was no. Then I thought, okay, I'm here for my son, but is this the life that I want my son to be a witness of? Because it got to the point that my ex was going and coming back 2 days later. So he became blatant with it. And that's when I said, you know what, I can't do this. And I don't want this to be the example that my son sees. So we actually agreed to separate. And I thought that was good, that we came into agreement. I thought it was going to be mutual. I told him that apparently I'm never going to be what you want. If I am in some way, you're never going to be satisfied with just me. And I can't live like this with you going from one person to the next, or even if it's not happening that way. I don't want to be the other woman, even if I'm your wife. I don't want to be the other woman. And so we agreed to separate. It took 6 to 7 months to even get to that point because he wasn't making it easy for me. I don't think he ever expected me to get to that point, honestly, because they think they're controlling you. They think that you can't live without them, that you become so codependent on them, that you're not going to be independent enough in your thinking or strong enough to move forward without them. But I just, I couldn't do it. I couldn't take it anymore. So I decided to make that decision and leave. I sought out an attorney. I had a separation agreement drawn up. I presented it to him. After a few days, there was no comment, so I inquired about it. And he said he wasn't in agreement with it. I said, "What are you not in agreement with?" "I want to be done fairly." I said, "Okay, well, what does that mean?" "I want to be treated fairly." I said, "Well, can you put that into words for me? If you would write down something, if you would talk to your attorney, give me something in writing, I'll take it back to my attorney and we'll go from there." And he just kept saying it, that's what that means. I just want to be done fairly. I want to be treated fairly. Then finally he said, "Well, you'll have to buy me out of the house." I said, "Okay, I'll do that." A few days later, he said, "No, I want to buy you out of the house." I said, "That's fine. No problem. We could do that." And a few days after that, he says, "You know what? I've decided that neither one of us needs the house. We need to sell the house. And what we need to do is this." I said, "Wait a minute. You've controlled the past 9 years of my life, but you will not control my future. What I do after we've separated and divorced is my decision. You have no control over that." So we kept going back and forth in this circle of, what do you want? You buy me, I buy you. And finally, I just said, I was praying about it all along, asking the Lord to guide my steps, to lead me, show me what to do, tell me what I need to do, Lord. And eventually, I just started thinking about stability. I thought about my son and what stability was for him. Anywhere I was stability, because he was used to being with me all the time. That house had become stability for him. So I thought, well, if he's in this house, he will have some sort of stability. He had developed some friends that lived across the cul-de-sac. And anywhere that I am, he'll have stability there. So I decided that I was going to just leave. I wanted to leave. And this started September, is when I gave him the separation agreement. We went on for 2 months. New Year's Eve, that evening, I wrote out some goals for the following year. It was 2006 is when we talked about separating. 2007 is when I separated. I wrote goals out December 31st of 2006. The first goal was to be physically separated within 30 days. I didn't know how that was going to happen, what it looked like. I was just prayerful. I knew that what I was doing was the right thing because I was being led. The Lord was guiding me through this. And it was 45 days into the new year that I separated. I went away Martin Luther King weekend to the beach. And I just prayed, meditated, sought the Lord, because there was a bad blow up with my ex that week. And I was just thinking, I can't do this much longer. I can't, because one of us isn't going to be here, because he's so good at provoking they provoke you to get you to act out so that you look like you're crazy, or you look like there's an issue, or you're the one that's angry and enraged all the time. I got to the point where I knew I wasn't going to be able to contain it. The Holy Spirit was helping me. He helped me through sometimes to not act on what my first instinct was to do. But that weekend, I just prayed and I kept meditating, walking the beach, staring at the water. And I heard the Lord say, "It's time." Mm. And I said, "What, Lord?" He said, "It's time. It's time to go." So when I got back, I just started making preparation to leave. I had been looking for a home for my son and myself. My niece was actually living with me at the time. She was in college. So I was looking for a place to accommodate all of us. And, you know, it seemed like I wasn't going to be able to find any place. My sisters came down from DC to help me. I just decided on one place, and all of a sudden, the Spirit said, "Go back to Rent Clicks. Go back to that site." I went back to that site. I saw a house. I said, "Oh, there's a house. It's near here. My son will be in the same school. I'm going to call and see if I could see it." So my sister said, "Yeah, go ahead and do it." This was on a Tuesday. I went. The owner said it would be 2 or 3 days because he had to do a background check. And he actually lived in Gastonia. So he was willing to drive at that for the moment to come to Charlotte so that I could see this house. Told me it was going to be 3 days before I would hear anything back. That was Tuesday. Thursday, he called me, said, "Can you meet me at the house? I have the keys." And I said, "Wait a minute. I thought you said it was going to be 3 days." He said, "No, everything is fine. I have the keys for you. Can you meet me there?" And I said, "Yes, by all means, I will meet you there." That next day, Friday, was February 17th of 2007. It was a year to the date that my ex and I had closed on the house that we moved into. And when I moved into that house, the Lord told me not to, with my ex. He told me not to do that. I was disobedient. He said, "Do not go to closing on that house." And I was trying to rationalize why. Why would he say that? This is going to be stability for my son, because it was all about my son and stability, because he was 7. Well, he was turning 7, and he had already moved 10 times. And so, because we relocated to South Carolina, came back, and my focus was stability for him. So I was disobedient and closed anyway. And that year, from February 17th, 2006 to February 17th, 2007, was a living hell. But that is when I was crying out, asking the Lord, "Why are you allowing it to happen?" One thing, I put myself in that position from not being obedient. And 2, that's when he was really making me strong so that I could be the testimony for other women.
Wow. That's so incredible. I know that reliving all of this can't be easy, but in order for you to talk about it as eloquently as you have, it's clear that you've had some healing and restoration, and you've had some really good days after what you experienced, and that's phenomenal. So thank you so much for sharing. I want you to know that your testimony is so valuable, and I pray that you never lose the courage and heart to share it. As I started the First Wives Club, and as I've connected with more and more wives, there are so many women who are in toxic relationships. And the first thing they feel is that they're alone and that nobody has experienced this before. The second thing they feel is that they're ashamed or embarrassed to have found themselves in that type of relationship. And many, many, many continue to stay in it even though they know it's not good for them and healthy for them. And so the testimony of how you've been able to transform what was such a grappling situation to living your life with new love and new hope is something that I think will resonate quite heavily. So thank you, Tami, so much for sharing your experience. And I'm so grateful that you went to the doctor. I'm so grateful that your doctor started asking questions. I'm grateful that you were honest with your doctor, because many times we hide behind shame, and we hide behind feeling as though they won't understand or they'll judge me because I'm in this situation. And so I really applaud you getting your confidence back. And I want to give you a chance to speak to women who are in that type of situation from a seat of having experienced it yourself. What would you say to them? What is the feedback that you have for them? Even if it's an audience of one person who needs to hear from you, or it could be many, what would you say?
Well, for one, I would say seek God, because that's where the true strength comes from, the Lord. Also, don't internalize it. Um, seek help. It helps to just express what's going on, how you're feeling. It's toxic to be in the relationship, but it's equally as toxic to your body, to your health, to your mental state. Don't think that it's going to change, because it's not. Prayer does change things. Prayer will change things. Be prayerful, but be careful. Be prayerful and be careful. Ask the Lord to guide you. I think if I was meant to still be in that particular relationship, I would. Don't make any hasty decisions. Don't make decisions off of emotion, but definitely seek counsel, not necessarily from your girlfriends or your family. I heard this comment, this quote that I like: talk to the throne, not the phone. So sometimes when we seek counsel from our friends and our loved ones, they don't give us the unbiased opinion that we need. And sometimes they're bandwagon jumpers, and that's not always good. I think it depends on each individual situation. In my case, I didn't see an out. It doesn't mean that that's the way that it always is, but a person has to want help. They first have to see the need to change and want to change, and then change is possible. But prayer does change things also. It's just everyone has a limit, and how far are you willing to go before you reach yours?
That's good. So before we close out, I want you to share with everyone how they can learn more about your business, which is what I thought I was going to read about in the book. And I think the business was partially what was therapeutic for you through this journey in discovering your gifts and your talents and what came out of that. So tell us about your business.
Well, Totally Tamz, excuse me, is the name of the business. It's gifts and accessories for men, women, children. It's just, I always had a love for creating things, and it is therapeutic for me to do that, to work with my hands, to just get lost in a vision or design. I just recently launched online. It's an Etsy online store, Totally Tamz. I'm on Instagram with Totally Tamz, at Totally Tamz. And I also have merchandise in a store in North Lake Mall, Happy Cat Candles and Gifts. It's a store with probably 25 independent business owners. And I am grateful to be one of those owners. I have my earring collection in there, as well as miscellaneous items that I add every now and then, mugs, coasters, bracelets for men, bookmarks, things like that. But it's whatever visions the Lord gives me is what I create. He told me years ago to trust and believe solely in Him and to use the gifts and talents that He has given me. So that is what I've decided to do. I have actually taken a leap of faith, and I'm stepping away from American Airlines to become a full-time entrepreneur.
That's awesome. Congratulations to you.
Thank you.
That is truly a leap. And we will make sure that we share all of those handles so that people can get in touch with you and support you. So Tami, thank you again. Thank you so much for your freedom of expression. And I am so encouraged, as I know many others who will have a chance to listen will be. And your testimony is one that we can wave in front of people who find themselves in that situation and let them know brighter days are ahead. So thank you. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I continue to applaud Tami. I think she is so courageous for sharing her story. I thank you that she was willing to share with us here at the First Wives Club. If you find that you can relate to Tami's story, if you find that you're in an abusive relationship of any kind, I want you to know that you are not alone and you do not deserve that. I want to encourage you to seek help. Help is available for you. You can be restored. You can be made whole. And in fact, you can even find love again. So if you need help, please get help. If you can't muster up courage to do anything else, make one phone call. The National Domestic Violence Hotline is available for you. The number is 1-800-779-SAFE, SAFE. And that's exactly what we want you to be, is safe. Again, that number is 1-800-799-SAFE. Please get help if you need help. You can overcome what you're facing now. It's Denise Taylor tuning out, and thank you so much for watching this episode of Love Talk.